This video is a build along on how to make a target style stabilizer with adjustable weights at the end. In this build I use some old broken arrows and components as well as a few easy to find things at your local hardware store. I've made a couple of DIY stabilizers over the years and the ones I have are getting to be a little bit old, and I just want to make some improvements to them. So I thought I'd go ahead and make another one and maybe do a DIY video for on how I did that. Here's one of the original stabilizers I've made over the years. You can see this one's got some hardware showing there on both ends. Basically just some nuts and bolts, a few washers, some old arrows, and can turn yourself into a pretty decent stabilizer. So that long was one of the first ones I made, and then I made this one pretty soon after because I wanted one that I could hunt with at a more reasonable length. So kind of the same design, couple different changes there, but I think I want to make another one, and I think I want to make a long one again. So I've got some arrows here that I've broken and they're no good anymore, so I'm going to use them. And here's all the hardware that I stopped at the hardware store and bought. So it's pretty cheap just to buy a few nuts, bolts, washers, a couple of arrow components that I have left over kicking around. So first thing I'm going to do is get these arrows cleaned up, get the fletchings cut off, get them cut to length, and then I'll get putting them together. I use this razor blade to remove the vanes from the old shafts that I'll be cutting to length. To cut the arrows to length, I used this arrow saw that I built. You'll have to check out my next YouTube video with instructions on how to build that. If you don't want to go that route, you can cut the arrows with the razor blade, but it's not ideal. I definitely don't recommend this method, but if you have to, it will get the job done. The majority of the modifications were done using these drill bits. It's 1/16, 3/16, 5/16, and a 1/2 inch drill bit. The 1/16 drill bit was used as a pilot hole in the washers, then stepped up to a 3/16 drill bit that accepts the flathead number 8 machine screws. In the rubber piece, I drilled a pilot hole with the 3/16 drill bit and then stepped it up to the 1/2 inch drill bit. I just did my best to do it in the center the best I could. It wasn't perfect, but it turned out okay. So I've got all the modifications made to all the pieces, but I thought I'd go over them real quickly before I assemble it, put it together. First one would be this one. It is a 1.25 inch washer. You can see I added the 4 holes in there. Next one over is just a 1 inch washer. The one I bought had a 1/4 inch hole in the center. I needed at 5/16, so I just had to make that hole bigger. You could probably buy one at the hardware store I was looking at. It didn't have one, so I just made that quick modification. The next is this 1 inch washer, same as the other. I put 4 holes in it, and on both of those I did countersink those a little bit to accept the flat head of this screw here, machine screw. Then on the end of the stabilizer, I put on the last thick washer here. It's 1.25 inches. I just countersunk that hole a little bit as well. This is a 1.25 inch to 1 inch rubber stop, and then inside there is the 1 inch steel spacer that you saw earlier in the video. I just put it in there and it's a pain to get out, so I'm going to leave it. But those are really the only modification pieces I made. The rest of this stuff is just, straight from the hardware store, a few nuts and bolts. So I'm going to get this put together for you. Here's all the tools I'll need to get that together: a couple Allen wrenches and a 1/2 inch box end wrench. I added this round rubber piece in the middle, mostly just for looks. It's really not necessary. You kind of got to be careful. If you start adding a lot of things like that, it starts to get expensive. So if you're trying to be cheap like me, I usually leave those kind of things off unless I already have them. So I had that one laying around and I incorporated it into this stabilizer. Overall, I'm really happy with the way this stabilizer turned out. If you look real close, you can tell that it's a homemade stabilizer, but I like that it's one of a kind and you'll never see another one like it. I hope you found this video useful. At the end, I'll leave a list of all the components and hardware that I used along in the build. Thanks for watching.